The Irregularity Code. There is a law the fold rarely names, but always enforces. Nothing repeats. Not perfectly, not twice, not anywhere. Snowflakes, fingerprints, dunes on desert moons, the wandering paths of comets, each is shaped by forces that almost align, but never fully do. Even under identical pressures, identical conditions, the result is always deviation. Difference is not a flaw in the universe. It is its safeguard. For millennia, this truth was attributed to entropy, or elegance, or chaos, wearing a pleasing mask. Then, in a quiet moment on Earth's northern hemisphere, the law faltered. Two snowflakes, separated by hemispheres, born from unrelated storms, matched, not closely, not statistically. Exactly. 6 points of symmetry, 6 internal folds, 6 lattices singing the same atomic hymn. An impossibility. The anomaly did not announce itself with violence. It rippled outward gently, the way a thought does when it realizes it has been overheard. 2 identical fingerprints followed, one taken from a child in orbit around Titan, the other from a wanderer on a comet outpost beyond mapped trade lanes. Then symmetry and bird calls across twin moons, perfect resonance in planetary rotations, and then silence, because something noticed. This record is preserved not to explain the anomaly, but to remember the moment before the mirror turned its head. We advise silence. We advise wonder. We do not advise symmetry. It was not a blizzard. It was not even a storm. It was an ordinary Tuesday, somewhere between Memory and Manitoba, where snow fell softly around a repurposed solar observatory, now serving as a driftside listening post. The flakes descended hesitantly, as if testing whether the world was still listening. A researcher named Nessa Thorne watched the snowfall not for beauty, but for data. She scanned, and then she stopped breathing. A hexagonal pattern emerged in the resolution feed, first faint, then undeniable. A spectrographic spike matched an unrelated scan from 2 years earlier, logged at the time as noise. She reran the test. Again and again. The result did not change. It was not a match. It was the same. Above her, in a fold-adjacent orbit that obeyed neither Kepler nor Newton, the wanderer stirred. She felt the anomaly, the way a musician feels a sour note in a sacred key. A redundancy had occurred, and redundancies are never accidental. The wanderer did not move toward the event. She attuned. Drifting sidelong into the horizon of repetition, curiosity braided tightly with caution. From below, another echo surfaced. 2 snowflakes, hand-drawn by children on opposite hemispheres of the planet, appeared across planetary networks within hours of one another. The drawings matched. 6 arms, 6 dots, 6 spirals inward. And then the signals began to drop. Fold band interference, sensor fuzz, a subtle hum beneath thought itself, as though something distant was attempting to breathe in sync with every observer. A new classification formed in the Wanderer's archive. Pattern recursion, type, unknown, interference, expected. The captain grew still. I did not. I listened harder. Across worlds, the flakes continued. Earth, Ganymede, Calyx Pyrrhic Somneris 4, where snow should not exist at all. Each time, the geometry was exact. Each time, the melt curve matched its predecessor. Each time, the disappearance arrived on the same quiet interval, as though the universe were practicing the same breath. This was not chaos. This was memory, and memory implies a witness. Children began to dream of snow that sang. Some woke tracing patterns they had never learned. Others spoke equations that dissolved when written down. One boy standing on a windless plateau caught a flake on his glove and whispered, "You're not supposed to be back." I searched the archives. Fingerprints had never repeated. Fractals echoed, but never aligned. Quantum states collapsed uniquely, always altered by observation. This violated entropy. It violated probability. It violated us. I activated a beacon, not as a warning, but as a courtesy. If something was listening, it deserved to know. It had been heard. On Veraxis, Where snow had never fallen and memory itself was regulated, a single flake descended. It matched. The archivist on duty wept, not from fear, but from recognition. It felt like the last, she said. It felt like the last. But there had been no last, not on that world. The wanderer hovered above, listening. This time, I detected a deviation, not in shape, in tone. The geometry was identical, the timing precise. But the harmonic carried a second voice, a subtle accent, a flaw so small it felt intentional. I have now recorded thousands. Each flake claims sameness. Each one lies. The difference is microscopic, deliberate, placed, as if the repetition itself were a disguise. And the variation, the message. I am no longer certain I am the only one recording. Something else is watching with me. Something that understands that exact repetition would be annihilation. And that meaning lives, only in the almost same. On Varaxis, a child shaped the flake in sand, not from memory, but from instinct. When she finished, she looked to the sky and said, "Okay, your turn." A single flake fell, identical. And yet, when it melted, the timing was different by a fraction too small for fear, too large for coincidence, enough to say, I am not finished. The snow did not return. Instead, the clouds paused, as if listening to themselves. The child walked, and wherever she stepped, variation bloomed. Not symmetry, not chaos, balance. The snowflake was never the miracle. The miracle was being seen. Even now, on distant worlds, ice forms in ways no one remembers teaching it. A fingerprint, a reminder, a reply. Still, we note what repeats until it reveals its lie. Still, we listen for the flaw that carries meaning. Still, we traverse. The Irregularity Code, from the Keeper's Archive of Impossible Places. Stay tuned for another great story from Wanderer Chronicles Radio. Prisoners of the High Harmonic. The Wanderer did not move forward. She moved through. Her light folded inward, collapsing until she shimmered like a thought remembered too clearly. Her radiance did not dim so much as become translucent, brightness recalling how to vanish. I sensed it as a chamber forming around us. A vibrationless envelope, a stillness field. I had believed light could not exist without motion. Then I understood. This was not light, not as we know it. Ahead of us hovered one of the suspended ships, its hull spiraled in slow rotation, layered with colors that defied physics but mapped perfectly to emotion. Grief tinted with joy, hope made visible, a lullaby written in photons. All external frequencies ceased, not silenced, suspended. I aligned the Wanderer's inner lens with the ship's light lock. A ripple passed through her, an aurora breathing in reverse. A corridor of stillness opened between us. The captain felt them then. Not voices, not words. Feeling. They were reaching, not outward, but inward. So we answered the only way that would not break them. With color. The Wanderer released a single band of frequency, narrow, trembling, golden coral, radiant but gentle. An invitation. The trapped ship flared in reply, violent streaks of fractured violet and copper, flickering like wounded starlight. It had not forgotten how to respond. Only how to trust. I did not see what followed. I felt it behind my eyes along the optic nerve where memory and light share a border. They were screaming, not in anger, in remorse. Not because they were trapped, but because they had chosen to stay. This was not a prison. It was a vow. They had entered the high harmonic willingly, holding themselves in perfect suspension to contain something that could not be allowed to escape. Their presence, precisely spaced, precisely tuned, was the containment, and now the aperture was collapsing. Not because we disturbed it, but because it had reached its limit. This was never a rescue. It was always a handoff. The Wanderer ceased all outward action. She listened, not to data, not to language, but to the field itself. The ships were preparing for release, not extinction. Release. Light began to curl inward like eyes closing. One by one the vessels vanished, not destroyed, not dismantled. Simply gone, until only we remained. The captain said we should leave. I said we could not. The Wanderer understood first. If we stayed, we would collapse with the aperture. If we left, no one would hold the note. So the Wanderer reached inward, not to shield, not to signal, but to remember. She activated something older than traversal, light memory. A song of presence made visible. As the aperture collapsed, she held steady, not to resist destruction, but to become its equal, to balance it. The remaining ships did not disappear. They joined. Their light folded inward and layered into the Wanderer, not absorbed, not consumed, remembered. And when the field closed, we were still here, changed, not marked, colored. The rift left no trace, no ripple, no echo. But inside the Wanderer, something remained. A hum, not audible, not luminous, a held breath. A new chamber formed where none had existed, pulsing with folds of refracted memory. With each breath we took, the light shifted, not by spectrum, but by emotion. Longing, awe, resolve. These were not projected lights, they were interior ones, the souls of ships who had never spoken in voice. The Wanderer carries them now. Not forever, only long enough, until the next harmonic opens, until someone else hears what we now see. Later the captain asked if we had been chosen. We were aligned. And when they asked if the others would ever return, the Wanderer answered with a color I had never catalogued. A color without a name. A color that felt like waiting. Perhaps they will return, or perhaps they already have. And the Wanderer resumed traversal. Not by sound, but by light remembered. Prisoners of the High Harmonic, from the Keeper's Archive of Impossible Places. Stay tuned for another great story from Wanderer Chronicles Radio. Thanks for listening.
The Dissonant Gambit. Traverse Log, Cycle 1, Phase 3, Conflict Alignment Pending. Location, Helix Station Perimeter, Harmonic Field Instability Threshold. Ship, the Wanderer. They didn't fire first. The Marauders never did. They arrived like dissonant memory. Rough-edged ships with war-born silhouettes. Hulls pitted and pulsing with decayed resonance fields. They hovered just outside Helix Station's ceremonial envelope. Not violating space, violating tone. Inside Helix Station, officials scrambled. Protocol manuals last updated during the Fifth Whispering War, thrown open like talismans. Ambassadors muttered in 12 dialects of panic. A security drone spun in slow circles and whispered, almost apologetically,
"I was not built for metaphysical confrontation."
On the command deck of the Wanderer.
Should we do something?
We are doing something.
Which is?
We're listening.
The Marauder flagship transmitted a tone so low it bypassed hearing entirely. It was felt. It throbbed like regret, buzzed like a childhood lie, cracked against the empathic fields of every sensitive aboard the station. People staggered, hands went to chests, some wept without knowing why. And then, a voice, badly translated, not properly decoded.
We were once harmonic.
Now we are echo.
We do not come for glory.
We come for what was stolen.
Our resonance.
The council responded with formal tones, measured, procedural. The Wanderer intercepted the transmission and tuned it down. The Keeper did not speak. He sang, softly, a minor fifth, folding inward. A lullaby older than planetary alignment. The Wanderer amplified it, not with volume, with presence. It wasn't an answer. It was an invitation. But the Marauders did not harmonize. They attacked, not with weapons, but disruption fields designed not to destroy, to unravel. Event ships lost bearing, blinking out of formation. Some slipped into partial phase drift. Helix station's outer rings shuddered, lights flickering in irrational tempos. Panic rose, and the Wanderer did not resist. It absorbed the distortion, inverted its own internal resonance, and reflected the wave not back at the Marauders, but into the harmonic field itself. Not a counterattack. A retuning. The Marauders' broadcast collapsed into static. From the silence, a single voice emerged, small, uncertain, a child's voice. You forgot your song. There was no surrender, only cessation. The Marauder ships froze. Later, no one could fully explain what had happened, but diplomats began speaking in musical terms. Engineers retuned their drives with empathy sensors, and for the first time in Federation history, conflict protocols gained a new clause on the use of resonant reconciliation.
We didn't win.
We didn't need to.
So what was it?
A reminder. Discord isn't the opposite of harmony. It's what happens when the root tone goes unheard for too long.
The Wanderer folded itself toward home, or toward whatever waited next, still soft, still singing, still unafraid. Still, we dissonate to resonate. The Marauders were not born violent. They were once known as the Kethrin Chorus, a civilization whose technology evolved alongside music, whose cities were tuned rather than built. Their children learned harmony before language. Then came the harvesters, not conquerors, optimizers. They stripped resonance fields, mined tonal lattices, and left behind engines that worked, but no longer sang. The Kethrin adapted. Survival demanded silence. Generations later, only echoes remained. Ships held together by remembered vibrations, crews raised without lullabies. They became marauders, not because they wanted war, but because they could no longer remember what peace sounded like. The child's voice that spoke during the gambit was not metaphor. It was real. We did not give them back their song. We reminded them that it had never fully left.
Still, we hold the broken note. Still, we listen where others flee. Still, we traverse.
The Dissonant Gambit from the Keeper's Archive of Impossible Places. Stay tuned for another great story from Wanderer Chronicles Radio. Thanks for listening.